Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have a treat for you today. I have Turker Hidirlar, and he owns two companies that I think are going to be very interesting for us to talk about today. He owns iConn Technologies, which is a B2B electromagnetic engineering and manufacturing solution company, but he also is the founder and MD of GoBiz USA, which is a B2B e-commerce marketplace. Welcome, Turker, to the podcast.
Jason, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And we found out offline that you live and work and have your businesses based very close to where I grew up in my home state of California. You're based in Irvine, California.
That's correct. So we migrated here, my wife and I, in 1999. This was the second country that we migrated into. We came here from Singapore, and we are originally from Germany.
Wow, what an amazing journey. Obviously, I've migrated from California to New Zealand, and we're about ready to make our second migration to Mexico in February. So it is, I think that before we start talking about business and everything else, I actually think that migrating and living in multiple countries, from my perspective, it allows you to see the world through multiple lenses, through multiple cultural lenses. And I think it actually makes us better entrepreneurs. I think it makes us better business people. I think it makes us better humans when we can develop this sense of empathy by seeing the world through different lenses. What is your thought on that?
I love the way you express that, especially the latter part of it, better human beings. Getting into a different culture, emerging it, not only just visiting it as a tourist, but emerging, having the work experience, having the ties. I graduated in Singapore. A lot of business contacts today are my former classmates, and having these bonds and the cultural assimilation done while you're living there gives you such a competitive advantage that no book can teach you in life. Just go there and experience it, because those people in Singapore, in Malaysia, in China, Taiwan, places where I worked, have all marked me, and I understand their needs, wants, their value system. And that served me well in conducting my day-to-day business operations. That's part of my success.
And I think that oftentimes governments have a vested interest in trying to foment division between countries. They have a vested interest in trying to ensure that the citizens of their country see their country as the greatest country in the world. Regardless, it's not just America that does this, but every country in the world and every government in the world seems to want its citizenry to think that it's the best country in the world. It's the only country in the world where people would want to live. And so there's no reason to emigrate. There's no reason to leave. There's no reason to take your taxes to another country. And I think that those kind of almost artificial dividing lines, they don't really serve humanity very well at all. And now we are down into a place where we're on the verge of potentially World War III as a result of some of these government fomented divisions. And I think that travel, international relations, international entrepreneurship, business ties, business links, and even interpersonal links. My wife is Asian. She's Chinese Viet, and I've had many Asian friends, close Asian friends over the years, still do have many close Asian friends. And I tell you, it puts paid to a lot of the quote unquote government propaganda that is out there that is causing division in society. We can break down those walls of division simply by becoming acquainted with and forming friendships and relationships with people from different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, different foods, different everything, different religions. I think when we form relationships with those people interpersonally, that really starts to break down those silos, and it really starts to break down those divisions. Would you agree?
100%. I agree with everything you said. Governments have an agenda to promote themselves, to be elected or stay in power and being not elected. And amongst the fuels that they use to be in that position is the race card. We are different. We have enemies. We have to protect ourselves, and all that talk that just creates the stark differences that we get fed by the media, by the outlets, by everything that creates regional crisis between two countries or ethnic groups. Sometimes governments even use that within their own country, just to divide the country so that they have a clear following that forms the base of their power. Now, here at iConn, we have been operating as the iConn family, and our vision is to be a global thinking organization. And that global thinking organization as a vision helped us to bridge between the different cultures and religions that operate within iConn. We call it the iConn family and the global thinking organization. And we challenge each other. Are you thinking right now? Is that worthy of what we stand for? And it solves so many different problems. And then we live together, we eat together, we see our children being raised under different cultures. We celebrate the different celebrative moments of every culture. And it makes us a better human being, a better human race, because there's only one human race.
And what I find interesting is that every person that I've met, and I have friends from virtually every country and race and culture around the world. And what I have found is that the fundamentals of people wanting to be free, have the right of self-determination, to be able to have the right of free speech, to express their opinions, to press their feelings safely and securely online and elsewhere. I think to be able to engage in commerce, engage in entrepreneurship, to be able to build something, to be able to create something and put it out into the world, being able to protect one's family and feed one's family and look after our family, our friends, and our loved ones. These are all pretty universal needs. These stem from, I guess, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and these are human needs. These are not to a culture or a race or a religion or a creed. These are very human needs. And I think if we can focus on that as the starting point for communication and respect and love for one another, then that feels like a really good common ground, because we all have the same needs ultimately at the end of the day as human beings.
The fundamental building blocks of human needs for each race, for every country, the same. Just we happen to live in a country where the standards are a little bit higher, but the person that is in Los Angeles downtown hungry, doesn't have a shelter over his head, or has a medical need, is no different than that's in Mexico or that's in a different country far away. I agree with you. And I think that business is an opportunity to bring benefits to corners of the world where people at the receiving end are very grateful to be doing business with you. And we will talk about this when we talk about GoBiz and the idea of what GoBiz is destined to do. The word globalization was introduced by politicians, or maybe a little bit more by industrial players that have political interests. And it has a lot of good things and good sides of it. But at the same time, it can rob poorer countries of their very existence. And there's a lot of examples how that can be done. So with globalization, we need responsible players, companies, corporations, and supply chain systems that can benefit all stakeholders of that pie that is to benefit and bring the return to afford the building blocks of human needs, which is a shelter, housing, water, safety, and so forth.
And it feels like you have taken these concepts of global trade, global manufacturing, global entrepreneurship, and these have been the building blocks of your two companies. And you've been running iConn for over 14 years now as a contract design and manufacturer of really complex electrical components and assemblies for OEMs, and contract manufacturing for cables, assemblies, wire harnesses, etc. So you're doing the hard yards of design and fabrication of these products from a supply side perspective, but then you're also with GoBiz, which has been running just under 2 years now. You've decided to bring the demand and supply side together through a wholesale marketplace. So you really have seen business through both lenses, the supply side, the demand side, and connecting the two together, with e-commerce being the great equalizer globally, specifically for entrepreneurship around the world.
Yes, as a person with a manufacturing background, having lived in Asia, I have operated a manufacturing facility in China with 1,200 men. I public listed in Malaysia with my colleagues a company on the Malaysian Technology Stock Exchange in 2005. And I've been on the heavy manufacturing side. When we entered iConn, I wanted to do it smarter because manufacturing in itself, having controlled everything in-house, is not scalable. So what we did is created iConn in the model as Uber or Airbnb or Amazon was created. It was like an exchange that offered manufacturing and engineering solutions to customer facing. And on the other side, we talked to manufacturing partners that didn't have that reach in lower cost regions of the world to face those very customers in the Western Hemisphere. And we did all of that on an Oracle platform, as you would call an Uber driver or Amazon participants in Amazon that are making those shops in Amazon available to consumers, Amazon retailers. We called our manufacturers iConn manufacturers, while the customer facing, we called them iConn customers. And out of a sudden, we had a business model that was highly scalable, flexible, agile to adapt to customers' problems, just with the overhead cost structure to create cost competitive solutions, mechanical and electromechanical solutions. And years into it, we have grown very swiftly, especially during the pandemic. We have registered almost an 80% growth on this platform because we had boots on the ground in those regions and traveling wasn't possible. People deferred back to us saying, you have people on the ground to make sure that my products are manufactured right and the logistics are taken care of. And that's how iConn has been created and operates today.
And does iConn own all of the manufacturing, design facilities, etc., its own self, or do you do certain pieces in-house and then you act as almost a marketplace of contract manufacturers where you connect the demand for that contract design and manufacturing with pre-vetted manufacturing partners that then do the manufacturing on behalf, and you guys act as almost like a super connector, you act as a program/project manager, etc., and make sure that everything is flowing freely between the customer and the manufacturer, or are you guys actually providing all those services directly under one roof effectively as a turnkey solution end to end?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you there for a second there, but I understood the question very well. We are a bit of everything. Oracle, interestingly, did 2 case studies about us in August of this year and called us or labeled us as a virtual manufacturer. So what is a virtual manufacturer? We run an MRP ERP program. We shadow the manufacturing process after we completed our design input. We own parts of the design solution because most of our clients come to us with a challenge and we have to formulate a solution for it. And we do that very often completely free of charge, just to earn the right to manufacture the product, the subassembly or the component within our ecosystem. If it is a product, I can tell you this a number very specifically, 46.7% of the content of that product is the average number for this year that we control ourselves. That could be the plastic resin, the sheet metal, the ICs, resistors, capacitors, whatever is critical to the item, we own that. We procure that through our procurement channels. We have 34 inventory locations worldwide. Then we consign these components to the manufacturing partner or partners. There may be multiple partners involved in a solution. And as such, we then completely make sure that they are set up to run this manufacturing to the desired requirements and quality standards that the customer absolutely wants this product under. So we have boots on the ground, quality personnel, development personnel, engineers, 6 people that interact with the factories. And then we coordinate then the delivery of the solution to our customer, completely independent from the manufacturer. and completely independent from the customer. What the customer gets to see is a served solution on a platter. We even warehouse that solution doing vendor managed inventory programs as complex manufacturing facilities offer it. And we do all of this without owning a factory. We have 28,000 operators that are working on our projects in 19 locations in China and as well as in Malaysia.
Wow. So you guys really truly are the single throat to choke. If someone wants to come to you and have something designed and manufactured to a specification, then you guys are that single throat to choke. They're going to get one invoice from you for everything to do with creating a product and getting it out to the world, getting it distributed into the world, whether that be through local wholesalers, local distributors, or to local retail stores. Doesn't really matter. You guys really can take something from concept through design, prototyping, engineering, product development, manufacturing, and distribution end to end.
That's true. And we have all of those, and not all customers play the whole suite with us. They have a certain strength that we can't match all the time. But then other customers say, I need all of that to be lined up so that I can focus on what I do best. That is innovation and product sales.
Makes absolute sense. Now, if we move away from the iConn side of the business and we move to GoBiz, presumably you must have seen through all of your connections through this 15 years of iConn and all of the global connections and products that you're making globally, presumably you saw a gap in the market and you said, hey, we're manufacturing largely for B2B businesses in most cases. Perhaps those products may go into retail, sometimes they may not, but they may go into industrial applications, etc. But what you must have seen a gap somewhere that made you think, hey, we see an opportunity here, just like the Amazons and the eBays and the Catch Groups and all of the B2C retail marketplaces, and even to a lesser degree, maybe some of the Chinese marketplaces. We see a real gap for B2B marketplaces here that is not being served today. And we feel like we're the ones to do it. We're going to create this wholesale marketplace for manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, et cetera, to have an e-commerce channel to sell through. We're going to create an aggregated cart-like experience for B2B customers to buy through. And we're going to make this seamless end-to-end experience of joining basically buyers and sellers together through a multi-vendor marketplace with GoBiz.
Yes, you put this really well together. Let me tell you what triggered us. It was actually Amazon that triggered us, because Amazon during the pandemic, they were a iConn customer, and Amazon contacts reached out to us and said, look, you guys have to be on our marketplace. You need to open an Amazon retail store because you have assets on the ground and we need those products there, and we need to qualify new type of manufacturers on the ground to bring products to the US. And we said, what type of products? PPE, protective equipment. And we had just gotten into PPE for our own need because our customers needed masks and hand sanitizers and wipes and so forth. And we were like shipping products to keep our manufacturing customers in the US and their offices up and running. And we said, so yeah, this is really something where we can excel. We opened up an Amazon store. Within 12 months, we saw 126,000 transactions on Amazon. Had never done e-commerce before. We linked Amazon because it grew so quick immediately into our Oracle system that we were very with Oracle NetSuite. And we started automating. That's what we are designed to do as engineers. And when we did so, after 12 months, I said, okay, let's take a look. Are we at all profitable in this whole undertaking? And 65% of our business transaction were between B2C and 35% between B2B. And we saw something that just opened our eyes. The B2C marketplace created about 5 to 7% profit on average, but the B2B marketplace was between 25 to 28%. So I said, we need to get off. We need to do this ourselves as a B2B marketplace, controlling all terms, conditions, communications under our terms. We know businesses what they need. And that's how I met one of my co-founders, Cameron. And with two other co-founders that joined us, we formed GoBiz USA. And when we formed GoBiz USA, we started just communicating to our ecosystem that we wanted to bring manufacturers and the end customers in the US, the end business customers together. Involuntarily, we were immediately positioned as a disruptor to the failed distribution channels, the importers, the wholesalers, the whole mess up of supply chain that had failed us so badly in the ecosystem during the pandemic. And when we did so, we saw when we priced our products and we focus on the needs of the end retailers, small businesses, enterprises, we saw enough margin to basically fuel a marketplace platform that could learn, adapt, get smarter day by day and grow.
And it looks like, at least according to Built With, you're not just using NetSuite for your backend ERP and managing your manufacturing processes and workflows and assemblies, etc., but you're also using SuiteCommerce Advanced for the actual e-commerce experience on the front end of GoBiz. Is that correct?
That is correct, because many of the B2Bs that we saw were either homegrown e-commerce sites or they were basically Shopify based. You can't serve an enterprise level customer with software like Shopify, or if you're not an Oracle yourself, you would have to develop an Oracle-like MRP, ERP program in order to serve and get approved into the supply chain of an enterprise-level customer. And let me give you an example. If you want to sell clothes hangers to Marriott, and Marriott right now is buying them from 3 manufacturers and they're importing them to a wholesaler or importer into the US, and then they put it into a central warehouse location, and they have 4,000 hotels to distribute these 3 different categories of, I'm making things up, 3 different categories of clothes hangers. That's a lot of logistics involved. That's a lot of carbon footprint that is being burned and established. So we said, how about we ask our manufacturing partners that had already in the pandemic rushed with containers full of products into the US, opened warehouses along the West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast, to just participate in the e-commerce B2C fest that had just taken place, just to learn that the only winners of that party were the whole Walmarts and Amazons, and there was nothing left for them. They had warehouses full of products, but they couldn't pair it to customers. So they started creating their own Shopify websites, and that wasn't very successful as well. We said, look, keep your products in your warehouse. Allow us to represent your products on our website. We will pair them free of charge with customers. Allow us to determine the price and our margin, and shipping will be from your place completely free to the customers. So shipping is free, marketing is free, the 2 things that distinguish us. And then we give free terms to customers after we qualify them for terms, so that they can become very active on the website right from day 1 onwards and participate in acquiring products and solutions that they need to sell in their marketplaces or consume as they see it fit.
It's a very interesting point that you bring up about payments. We actually had the guys from Balance Payments, which is an Israeli payments company, fintech company, focused purely on B2B payments infrastructure. So think of them almost like a Stripe, but for B2B payments, and being able to support all the various different types of B2B payments that are required across marketplaces and across e-commerce sites, from ACH to international wire transfers to credit cards to on account to BNPL, all in one payments platform specifically targeted at B2B. Have you guys had any conversations with the guys over at Balance about potentially integrating their solution into your marketplace to open it up even further to different payment methods that don't require necessarily having a credit account with GoBiz?
So we are evaluating potential payment partners and evaluating what they have to offer. We want to get to the table with them after we completely taken and leverage the opportunity that we have with manufacturers. Typically, our manufacturers give us 60 to 90-day terms. That allows me to give 30-day terms to my customers right straight from the start. However, that's not scalable. We are expecting tens of thousands of products to be listed on our website. We have a very big pipeline waiting for us to list, and we're working night and days on product listings. And eventually we'll be sitting with fintech companies together to figure out which one fits us best, which one fits us and our customers best, and which one gives us the best competitive advantage.
Love it. And how many products roughly, high level, how many products? I see there's quite a few categories here. You've got home goods, you've got lawn and garden, shipping, sporting goods, health, beauty, computer accessories, haste, quantities of products. So you cover quite a few categories and I guess types of lots of buying. You support multiple modes of buying and multiple categories. Roughly how many products are listed on the site today? And where would you like to be, say, in another 12 to 18 months' time? What does your roadmap look like of onboarding products into the marketplace?
So we have right now about 3,500 products. We have in the pipeline close to 10,000. In 12 months, we want to hit 50,000 products listings on that website.
Wow, 50,000 product listings. That is phenomenal. That's very ambitious. Obviously, some of the B2C marketplaces have millions of products, but when we're talking about manufactured goods here, and we're talking about wholesale and B2B, that is very ambitious. Now, what I found interesting is you didn't choose to go with a turnkey marketplace platform like a Marketplacer or a Miracle or one of the off-the-shelf SaaS marketplace platforms to get yourself up and running. Because you run Oracle in the back end, you've chosen to build on Oracle in the front end, NetSuite platform, and you've built on SuiteCommerce Advanced and had some exposure to SuiteCommerce Advanced in years gone by. And it certainly was a bit of a challenging platform to do e-commerce on. And I wasn't actually even aware that SuiteCommerce Advanced had multi-vendor marketplace functionality available. Or was that something that NetSuite worked with you, or your NetSuite partner perhaps worked with you to develop this custom marketplace, multi-vendor marketplace functionality on your platform? Was that custom developed, or did NetSuite build that marketplace module for you, knowing that you wanted to build on their platform?
Actually, there's SuiteCommerce out of the box, which is a ERP-backed Shopify, and then there's Advanced. Advanced allows you to get access to the source code, and you develop it yourself. And of course, we work with our internal resources, outsourced resources, and we work with the Oracle, NetSuite, CS teams, which are located in Manila, in the Philippines, and Uruguay, as well as statesides. We are paying ourselves in developing this. And the reason why we are doing this is this. E-commerce B2B, as we know today, we are focusing on finished products. However, remember, iConn has this huge knowledge of how to customize a product, because customers need to eventually compete in the market with their own identity, with their own brand, with their own boxing, as well as features of it into the product that distinguish themselves from others. So we are loading the product with industry standard consumable products, but we will be evolving in offering private labeling and inclusively customizing the product with features that customers would like to see. And finally, in the later stages, maybe 3 to 5 years from now, when customers come to us with ideas and concepts, we can take the skill set of iConn and say, GoBiz can do exactly what you need here, from product development support, pre-production support, mass production support, everything from concept till finish and supply. So eventually, the iConn business model and capabilities that are very matured will be supporting the B2B platform with very unique and distinguishable capabilities, because at the end, we need to be ahead of our competitors, and we want to use the iConn assets to create that differentiation down the road.
Love it. Love the concept of, because obviously Suite Commerce Advanced was actually an acquired product. It was not developed in-house by NetSuite. And so that it makes sense that that Uruguay team, and the previous product, I forget what it was called before it was Suite Commerce Advanced, but this product was developed in Uruguay. So I know that the development team that's based there is the previous developers of the product that was acquired by NetSuite. So that makes sense that you'd be using skilled developers that have deep experience with this platform, but also bringing some of that knowledge of the platform in-house so that you can maintain a level of ownership and responsibility for we could call it platform development, but in essence, it's product development. So you've got deep experience in road mapping product development. So, whether it's a physical product or a digital product, as in this case, GoBiz is effectively a digital product, a digital platform, and you're bringing your prowess in product development to platform development of the GoBiz platform. And by bringing that ownership in-house and taking responsibility of that, and for example, learning SuiteScript and all the things you need to be able to do to develop this platform on an ongoing basis, by having that knowledge transfer come in-house, now you've got an investable asset that is very, very unique to you. And now all of a sudden it starts to, over time, the value of that asset increases the more development time and energy you put into it. It also creates barriers to entry for other B2B marketplaces that may think about starting up. If you are bringing such a unique value to the industry and connecting those manufacturers with those B2B and perhaps even in some cases end consumers, then it feels like you've got an asset now that can be leveraged and monetized in multiple different ways.
Yes, I would love to have you on board on the team because you put these competitive advantage models that we are having today and that we will be developing down the road in such a unique perspective. I think the future of B2B is where real world of manufacturing and the digital platform have to fuse and become inseparable, not just by digits, by actually business flows that complement each other. And we would like to be the first to attempt to do this. And I think lower cost regions of the world will have always a high barrier to entry for the B2B market segment in the first world. And I think based on our work history with iConn, we are well equipped to make that transition for them possible through the platform. Let me give you an example. The other day or last week, we were making a presentation to the Malaysia government. It's called the MaTrade division of the Malaysia government that is in charge of trade affairs and with the United States. And we had members of the Malaysian consulate in there as well, and we introduced the GoBiz model to them. And our partners in Malaysia who arranged this meeting were trying to convince the government's objectives of increasing export into the US could be very possible and on a scalable platform like GoBiz if the Malaysian government allowed us to address the exporting manufacturers and members of MaTrade to be addressed by us. And we separated out of this meeting by the Malaysian government telling us, can you do in 25 days to 30 days a presentation on a webinar platform? We will have thousands of manufacturers that will be participating in there. You can see how government objectives and GoBiz objectives can be now synced. And that's the reason why listing product quantities is not going to be a problem. But it brings other challenges. We are now hiring and recruiting already, and we have in the last 2 days alone, we have recruited auditors because these factories have to be audited for compliance with ethics standards, quality standards, environmental standards, all the things that iConn has been doing for years and years. We need to do that just on a scalable form because the GoBiz platform will also form a database for its business customers if they were to inquire about the factories and their certifications. We want to have that all available from our MRP ERP system where the vendor profiles are embedded and the capabilities will be well documented.
And what I love about this is we've seen some wholesale marketplaces start up in the likes of Australia and other areas of Asia that they've tried to do what you're doing today. But what I like about, in particular, your approach to this is the fact that you have deep B2B know-how behind. You didn't just come, you don't come necessarily from the e-commerce background. And so as opposed to approaching this necessarily through a pure e-commerce lens or through a pure marketplace lens, you are actually building out an end-to-end solution for all the companies that are doing the hard yards of the designing, the manufacturing, the warehousing, the distribution, etc. You are bringing a more end-to-end turnkey solution to them through your marketplace platform, because specifically you know what's involved in all of those components. So it feels like you are taking quite a different lens on, you're applying quite a different lens to the way that you're building out the functionality of this platform to be really specific to the B2B market space and B2B manufacturing space. And I love that, because I work primarily as a consultant with B2B merchants. And you're right, some of them have tried to build on their own, perhaps on a Shopify or something like that. But what I find is that most of my work is when they want to level up, and then when they either want to sell B2B to their B2B customers via e-commerce, or they also want to establish a D2C channel, a direct-to-consumer channel. And I help to get them onto platforms, e-commerce platforms now, not Shopify, that can handle all of that complex B2B functionality, which Shopify can't handle. For example, MOQs, custom price lists, custom catalogs and subcatalogs specific to a specific customer, being able to request quotes and get replies of quotes and get order specific discounts based on combinations of products and quantities. So in the B2B space, I have a deep appreciation and respect for the complexity of B2B e-commerce, because I'm helping wholesale brands and manufacturing brands every single day to develop their direct e-commerce play on top of platforms that are designed to be able to support that model. But what they don't have access to today in many cases is what the B2C market already has access to. So if I have a retail brand today and I want to sell direct to consumer, cool. Then I can sell through a Shopify website or any BigCommerce or Magento or whatever. I can also sell through Amazon. I can also sell through eBay. I can also sell through all these B2C marketplaces. And in fact, if I want to test out a new market and I want to dip my toes in the water of a new market in a new region, then what I can do is I can start by selling on a local B2C marketplace, assess the market demand, assess the profitability, etc. Then I can perhaps create a microsite, a B2C microsite in that market and sell direct to consumer in that market via my own website. Now, B2B oftentimes, and particularly historically, has never had that opportunity. So they've either had to go whole hog and build out the entire B2B e-commerce operation from the ground up on a platform that supports that model and sell B2B e-commerce that way, or they've had to try to leverage B2C marketplace platforms and try to leverage those in a B2B-like way, selling direct to consumer through those platforms. So what I like is the fact that you understand all of the complexity of B2B businesses trying to sell via e-commerce, and you're saying, hey, let us own that. Let us take responsibility for all these end-to-end pieces. We provide an absolute turnkey solution so that you don't need to go out there and build your own B2B e-commerce website supporting B2B sales, supporting D2C sales, etc. Let us own all of that complexity and responsibility. And we're building it in a scalable way, because instead of building it for one B2B business, we're building it for hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of B2B businesses. So let us leverage our investment for you at scale.
Right. And everything you said, well, we did this customer facing with iConn, and with GoBiz, we are offering these services now manufacturer facing with GoBiz. And our deep understanding of manufacturing and how to do resource management, resource planning, how to do the accounting and logistics with these become very handy to us, because we know what the barriers of those manufacturers are wanting to do only the upfront part of it, trying to face the B2B customers or B2C customers in the US on their own. It's very challenging. And I have talked to dozens of companies that have spent millions, tens of millions of dollars just so that they can say we tried. And it's those companies that tried on Amazon's and Walmarts and other websites that jumped on first on our website and said, Turker, we know you, and iConn had the record that we can do scalable 120 plus thousand transactions on Amazon alone. We know how that automation process is working and so forth. And they came to us and said, not only do you know how to scale that, but you know what the needs of the customers are. There's one element in B2B that is very less talked about. And sometimes I'm sure it comes into your conversations all the time. Not everything can be done digitally. We need the human contact. And so iConn for years faced customers with representatives. Reps. America is full of reps, commission-based reps. They do nothing else and every day going door to door and selling based out of catalogs or of ideas, the capabilities of manufacturers. Why couldn't they sell GoBiz? Why couldn't they be awarded in selling GoBiz? There's margin to be distributed to them. And so we are going to establish a rep network targeting large rep organizations with hundreds and thousands of representatives that are suddenly going through that door, and they know what these factories, what these businesses are consuming in massive volumes or what they could be reselling. And they're going to say, sign up on this website. And for the sign up, they get a sign up fee. And for the sales to that particular customer through the website, they get a traditional commission, something that America's business was founded on. The spirit of free, the spirit of standalone entrepreneurs, salespeople, reps that want to just commissioned and have no ceiling on the commission. And that's what we're going to leverage on.
So really taking the concept of that commissioned rep and turning them into a referral partner of GoBiz to where they can still earn that traditional model of commissions, but they're actually acting as a referral partner of GoBiz, and that opens up the opportunity for them to represent virtually any product that's sellable on GoBiz, and it allows them to be commissioned in the process. So it really is tapping into an existing business model that a lot of these manufacturers have employed by default, which is using these reps, but instead of referring to one-off individual manufacturers or wholesalers or distributors, now they can refer en masse to GoBiz and still get the same benefits.
Exactly. And they are naturally in sales. They have sales techniques. You can call them referrals. I like to call them still reps because that's what they call themselves. If I call them any different, they say, what? Because they're the foot soldiers that make that human connection that we need. Because there is no MRP system or ERP system that boards a vendor, a supplier, without having a reference contact in there. And that reference contact is going to be the rep, that first one, and then it's going to be the internal sales and customer support team of GoBiz that's going to open that channel and continue funneling products into that customer and addressing their challenges and their needs as they develop.
Love it. Listen, it sounds like you have done something great here for the business community, for the B2B community, for the e-commerce space. You're definitely challenging those traditional concepts of e-commerce and marketplaces and becoming more of a turnkey end-to-end customer acquisition solution. I would put your marketplace, I'd put it under the banner of customer acquisition, because it's really, you're not only just connecting buyers and sellers, but you're creating tooling that allows these manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors to have access to markets they would simply otherwise not have access to, almost independent of the level of scale that they have. Plus, you have the iConn backing, which allows them to scale should it be required, and allows you to bring iConn firepower to perhaps smaller manufacturers that allow them to scale as their business scales on GoBiz. So I really like where you're going with this. I like what you're doing for the market. I like the concept and sense of entrepreneurship that you're bringing to this to drive B2B e-commerce forward particularly in the American market in ways that I haven't really seen before. So congratulations on that. And if someone wants to learn more about GoBiz, are they best to simply go to the website? So it's GoBiz USA or ZUSA.com, depending on where in the world you are and how you pronounce a Z or a Z. So it's GoBizUSA.com. Are they best to go to the website and inquire through there if they want to be a manufacturing supplier? or are they best to reach out directly to you on something like LinkedIn? How would you prefer that people get a hold of you?
I think the website has good guidelines for manufacturers that want to be in contact with us, and we get them every night, every day. We have customers as well as manufacturers contacting us. Yes, reach us over the website. I'm through LinkedIn available as well, and my assistant does a great job vetting through my inbox. And we will reach back out to you. Through the website, you'll get an automatic email that tells you, give us time. We need about 20 plus days as of today to get back to customers, because we have hundreds of customers, I'm saying manufacturers. We have hundreds of manufacturers that are waiting to be contacted. Let me give you just another fact here. We published our idea a little bit on for about less than 12 hours on LinkedIn. We immediately signed up a Korean, a Japanese, and an American manufacturer, and came up to us with hundreds of products, and they kept us busy. And we haven't even started marketing actively for manufacturers to join us. But the automation processes of boarding manufacturers is underway. It's designed to be very scalable. We are in the hiring position, and contact us and your turn will be there too, and we will get back to you.
Love it, Turker. Really appreciate your insights into the industry. Really appreciate your insights into the build out of your platform and what you're looking to do and how you're looking to shake up the traditional B2B sales process and bring a high level of automation to it. Love what you're doing. Would love to get you back onto the podcast another 6, 12, 18 months and see how far you've come along. But we're now at the part of the podcast where I turn the microphone over to you and I let you ask me one question, any question you like. And so over to you, Turker. What would you like to ask me today?
Jason, thank you for the opportunity. So let me ask you this question here with your international background. How do you think companies in third world countries could benefit exactly of what we are doing here with your experience? How could they benefit in entering the Western world, cutting the middleman, the traditional brick and mortar distributors and wholesalers? And how could this effort help to curb down inflation as we see today backwards?
Very good question. I think there's probably two parts to this question. I'll deal with the second part first, because I think that by definition, largely, if we look out 10 years into the future of retail full stop, I think that there are going to be significantly fewer retailers in the market, full stop. And then when I say retailers, I'm talking B2C retailers here who are effectively just reselling other people's stuff. They don't manufacture it. They don't distribute it. They're not wholesalers. They buy it off of a manufacturer, wholesaler, or distributor or distributors, and they mark it up and they resell it, whether it be through a website, through brick and mortar, whatever. And I think that the market is not going to tolerate the lack of value add that most retailers bring to that environment. They just don't bring much of a value add. They maybe build a brick and mortar store and they fill it full of stuff, and then they put a bunch of tills there and someone to stand at the tills to take the payments, and they expect people to just come in and buy with virtually no value add whatsoever to that whole exchange. And even online, not necessarily bringing curation to the table, etc. And so I think that what we're going to see is massive consolidation in the retail market over the next decade, to where there's going to be an absolute tiny fraction of the B2C retailers existing today. Now, what that necessarily means is that the B2B manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors out there are going to be creating more and more direct-to-consumer plays over time, because they can shrink their wholesale margin and they can shrink their retail margin. But because they're capturing both margins, they're capturing the wholesale margin and the retail margin, their net margin will remain the same by selling direct to consumer. So what that's ultimately going to do is it's going to eliminate tens of thousands of retail middlemen and women, and that is ultimately going to bring the retail prices of many products down substantially. So that is going to, by definition, I think that transition out of the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things is going to automatically bring a significant portion of inflation down, because we're now not going to have these traditional wholesale margins and full fat retail margins. They're both going to be compressed and accrue directly to the manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors. Now, when it comes to the third world countries, this is a very good question because this is something I've thought about, and even in areas of my passion. So I love hot sauce, for example. I've always been a big fan of hot sauce. And one of the things I wanted to do when I was in Mexico and when we moved there and as I'm traveling around, there are tens of thousands of small regional boutique manufacturers of hot sauces that they sell through street stands and carts and through local restaurants, etc. But they don't sell internationally. They don't even sell nationally throughout the whole of Mexico necessarily. And they certainly don't export because they're small, right? They only make small amounts of product. They make batches of product, similar like batch brewed beer or small scale wineries, very similar sort of a thing. But if their product could be exposed to the world in a better way, then they would be able to scale. They have the access to the raw materials, they have access to labor, they would actually be able to scale, but they have no idea where to even begin to start selling to the world or even selling nationally throughout the whole of Mexico. So what I was thinking of doing is to create a retail website where I work with all of these small scale manufacturers and I start showcasing their product and I market it internationally. But I think that both through wholesale marketplaces like yours, as well as through retail marketplaces, these guys, if you can teach them how to do it and you can teach them how to get their product into your platforms, it allows them to have now almost overnight access to a global audience of buyers that they would never otherwise have access to. So I think that, yes, I think inflation is going to be impacted by the transition away from traditional B2C retail to more D2C retail. But I think that platforms like GoBiz and other platforms like this is by definition going to be able to help small scale boutique manufacturers in third world countries have access to the world like never before. And that has always historically been the promise of e-commerce. It's borderless commerce. That has always been the idea. But we know that borderless commerce doesn't really exist because there's international tax regimes and there's international logistics to think about. There's so much involved in borderless commerce that really there still are borders in commerce if we're honest with ourselves. And so I think any platform like yours that helps to break down those silos and those barriers is automatically going to accrue more benefit to third world countries than advanced countries, because in advanced countries, most of these brands, they have a direct consumer play through their own website. And in many cases, it's very successful for them. So they don't have as much of an incentive to work with platforms like yours. But in the third world, it's not the case. So that's my answer, and hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a very comprehensive answer. You covered everything possible. One thing to add on to there is, in order to bring them to the platform, they also need to be thought to be consistent with their quality, and they need to be audited. They need to be enabled to turn in some of their return into investments to create the standards that is safe for consumers to consume in far distant marketplaces. And we also take that as a mission of GoBiz, and we will develop in that space, being the moderator and the boots on the ground, passing that knowledge to those smaller retailers, mom and pop shops that can reach with their creative input the type of customer that is appreciative and curious to try.
Love it. Turker Hidirlar from GoBiz, thank you very much. And also from iConn as well. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on the pod and look forward to chatting with you again soon, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that too.
Are you a merchant or software vendor that is focused on e-commerce or omnichannel? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to see how we can help you scale your business.